So good morning, everybody. This is Koiti Hasida from Japan. I'm going to share the updates of what's been happening in Japan ever since I and my colleagues talked about what was happening in Japan 1 year ago at this conference. And the first thing I'd like to share is MyData Japan 2017, which was held Friday, May 19th, hosted by Open Knowledge Japan, represented by Professor Shoji, sitting there. And the plan of this conference was first, considered at the very last night of MyData 2016. So several of my colleagues gathered to a dinner, and they naturally talked about this at the first time. I was absent from that dinner, but afterwards I was informed that the idea and instantly agreed upon it. So we held this conference this year at the Akihabara Convention Center, which is close to the center of Tokyo, gathering about 400 people as the audience. And these are the speakers. These are the speakers, except for one who did not consent to disclose his picture, unfortunately. I'd like to share several major points that were raised at this conference, according to my prejudice, of course. And these are the points presented at the introductory part of the conference. So MyData is some kind of open data that's open to me or you. And not just privacy, so MyData concern not just privacy protection, but also individuals' aggregation and utilization of their own data. And at the same, not only for individuals, but also for industrial development and so many other benefits are included here. And this movement is in line with the recent trend of empowerment of individuals. And your data aggregated across multiple vendors under your own initiative is quite useful, which would account for more powerful businesses and services provided by GAFA companies, and that would account for better industries, of course. And so those values are not just for individuals, but also for the entire society. So this is the summary of the introductory part of the conference. And this is not part of the conference, but what has been happening in Japan ever since last year. So, this January 2016 was before MyData 2016, but from January last year, my number, which is person identification number for public services, has been in operation. So we Japanese people, all of us have this my number. And from in December last year, basic act on the advancement of utilizing public and private sector data passed the Diet, and immediately it was enforced. And in particular, the Article 12 of this act says that the government is to develop the foundation for enabling a wide variety of actors to appropriately with the participation of the individuals. So each citizen must be involved in the usage of his or her own data. And May this year, the amended act on the protection of personal information has been enforced. And that supports data portability. No, it doesn't support the kind of data portability mandated by GDPR. So there is a similar clause in this Japanese law corresponding to the Article 20 of GDPR, but that clause does not mandate data disclosure based upon some electronic means. So the personal information controller may disclose personal information by paper document. So that's something missing compared to GDPR. And maybe from this October or November, Minor Portal, which is a web portal site for citizens to view, access logs of their data, etc., will be in operation, I expect. And also from next year, open APIs of banking services are the must in Japan as well, like PSD2 in EU, payment service directive, revised payment service directive from 2018 as well. So these are what's happening in Japan. And there are some government perspectives presented at the conference, mainly two speakers. One of them did not consent to disclose his picture, unfortunately. So the first one is that the government is expecting private services and they would meet some requirements. So private services like PDS, information bank, data trading market are expected to be emerging as private services. And the government expects that security, interoperability, dispute settlement, traceability, portability, erasure would be supported by those services. Another thing is My Number card, which is associated with the person identification service nationwide. And this is an IC card for personal identification for the sake of registering each of us to many different services like creating bank account and so on. And of course, taxation is associated with the My Number, and this card can be used for many different, basically public services. However, only 10% of the entire population has acquired this card yet. So the government is trying to enlarge the usage of this card currently. And one idea, which was proposed by Mr. Hirai, Congressman, was that maybe the government is introduce some IT social workers to assist elders and maybe other IT illiterate people to be able to use this My Number card. And another point is regional PDS. The current situation in Japan is, as widely known, Japan is the most population declining and aging society in the world. So I think about 20%, 27% of the entire population is 65 years or older currently, and the ratio is increasing. And the maximum ratio would be attained in the year 2025, probably. And at the same time, in parallel to this trend, increasing number of households are one person. So that means public health and self-health are declining, weakened, which probably mean that we need some infrastructure to support mutual health. And regional PDS may address that need. In order to accumulate and utilize citizens' behavior data for the sake of collaboration among the stakeholders, including citizens themselves, local governments, local industry, research organizations, and fields, etc. And this is my own point. Decentralization versus centralization. The first is centralized management of data sharing by PDS or PDMS and so on, entails needless cost and extra data leakage risks. So the data provider, typically the data subject, the data user, typically a servicer, should directly share data without any middleman. So this is centralized data sharing. So this guy is a middleman who is executing the centralized management of data sharing here. And he needs some centralized database or ID federation server, which entails a lot of cost for both introduction and operation. And what's worse is that this invites a huge risk of data leakage, of these pieces of data shared in this infrastructure. So that's an extra cost or extra risk of leaking data compared with the risk of data leakage from data owner and data user. These risks are inevitable because they can access some amount of data. That inevitably means that this data may leak due to their mistakes or due to their malicious will and so on. So these risks are inevitable, but this extra huge risk is superfluous. So let's do this decentralized way. So in this situation, data sharing is directly done between the data provider and data user. There is no middleman between them, which means that there is no data leakage risk here. Of course, these risks of leaking data from data user and data owner are inevitable, but the huge difference between centralized and decentralized data sharing, that in this situation there is no data leakage risk here. And let's skip this. And PLR is the kind of decentralized personal data store. It's an acronym of Personal Life Repository that I have been developing, is this thing. So personal device and corporate computers are running some personal and corporate applications, and they are connected with PLR libraries and PLR main module. And PLR operates the PLR cloud, which is basically a collection of online storages like Google Drive and Dropbox and so on and so forth. However, any data stored or sent are encrypted in the system of PLR. So those operators of public data storages like Google or Dropbox, they cannot have access to the content of the data. So they are not middlemen. Therefore, the data sharing here is sort of P2P, directly done between data owner and data users. And this technology is used in several Japanese national projects. Some of them. I am involved in 2 of them, and this picture explains the project that I'm heading myself. So in this project, we are collaborating with these different regions in Japan, and these regions have been operating so-called EHR services. EHR stands for Electronic Health Record, which is for medical organizations to share data with each other. And what we have been doing is to connect this EHR server with PLR so that individual patients can share medical data with medical organizations. So this is what we have done in early this fiscal year. And what we are currently doing is to eliminate this, to realize this direct data sharing without any middleman, which has no dedicated server, no VPN, no dedicated database, which means this is safer and cheaper. And finally, I'd like to mention the healthcare system in Japan. So Japanese healthcare is nearly 100% public insurance based, and it is, well, famous, I hope, for best cost performance among OECD countries. But of course, it's at escalating financial crisis due to many reasons. In particular, there is a lack of collaboration among medical organizations. They haven't because they haven't benefited by sharing medical data with each other so far. But the currently proceeding reform of Japanese healthcare system towards 2025. If this reform proceeds, then data sharing and collaboration among the medical organizations is mandatory for the management of the institutions, and that that would be much clearer from next year. In comparison, medical data portability is not mandatory under GDPR. So, in that sense, in some areas of data, Japan may be going ahead of the EU, and that's what I want to share with you. And this is the last slide. We are going to hold next year MyData Japan. So we have already reserved a place, and the date is May 25th. That's Friday, and this is a bigger place, Hitotsubashi Auditorium, Tokyo, which accommodates more than the last one, about 500 people. And we would be providing partially parallel sessions like MyData here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Koiti. We now have some time for questions from the auditorium. So for this, let's not use the screen I/O, because then we can be more together. At the end of the session, we will still have the lessons learned on screen I/O. So I will just start out. So do I get it right that the PLR is currently already in effect, and people are gathering also their health data there, although it's still not officially
it's planning stage yet, and several people are there for the sake of elderly care, and that usage involves a little more than 70 people. But we are planning to introduce this technology into the medical domain from now on, maybe from October or November this year.
Okay, then.
Thank you first for that presentation. In order maybe also to introduce the kind of exchange we'd like to have, what we're expecting from this workshop is first of all that we share the goals and also the challenges that our respective initiatives or projected initiatives are facing. So based on your experience, either from other participants in the MyData 2017 or maybe on your own project, the PLR one, what do you think would be the main challenges, the main barriers, the main difficulties you need or you will need to overcome in order to
so we have
successful?
we are facing the same difficulties as in Europe. That is to persuade the industry to disclose their data, to share their data, not their data, but the data they are controlling with their clients. But some companies are quite interested in doing that. In particular, those companies which have not been accumulating personal data. So they, in such a way that they would be, doing business, using personal data not owned by them but owned by their clients. That's most, efficient and safe way to do B2C services in the future. So there are several companies like that.
So that would be the main difficulty you'll face?
Yeah.
Yes, just a question on some challenges as well. I was in Reigen Institute some 2 or 3 years ago, where I was asked to come to try to provoke a discussion specifically on genomics and data sharing. And what I learned was that people are very reluctant into giving their personal data into a general pool because of stigmatization, which still could be an issue. Is that still a big challenge, you think?
No. You were talking about individuals' reluctance, right? Rather than medical.
So what we saw at that point was that people were very keen to do private genetic testing, but not very keen to do it in a public sector where the data would be stored and they didn't have to.
We have to say
Still.
okay.
It takes a while and
Sure.
then
I hope. Yesterday I had to make a
So in Japan also there's some very huge genomic database controlled by the government, and they are not willing to disclose the data to the data subjects, and I think that's the same kind of reluctance.
So yeah, but where I'm trying to get at is I think that the need is not just the MyData tribe, but is to get the bridge between the collective and the individual data, so we both get aggregated knowledge and individual usability.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure if that's still a challenge. It would still be a challenge to get MyData used in healthcare.
Yeah, in particular, genomic data. We are not quite sure about genomic data. How to use genomic data to do services to the individual. And there are many questionable services so far, and people are quite reluctant to, recommend those data, and so that individual people are quite afraid of the sort of data.
Yes.
So that's a very yes.
Thanks. Any more questions?
I also have a question. It was interesting to see that you have this My Number project going on, because a couple of years ago our former Chief Information Officer in Estonia, Taavi Kotka, visited Japan and told that in Japan there's a huge problem. They don't have this national identification code, and that's why you can't build up these e-services like we have in Estonia. But now we see you have made such a progress, and the people are now getting this card as well. But it's still at the 10%. So it's still a bit to get this e-services widely used in Japan. More and more people need to get this card. What's the obstacles there, and how do you plan to overcome of this problem?
So the merit of using this card is not clear yet for many people. That's why so few people have been using this card. So the government force is trying to enlarge the scope of the different services associated with the card.
I think from Vladimir.
I think I somehow comment or ask about this point, because my question is, do you see some incentives that government can give to persons in order to, engage them at sharing, not sharing, but just using their data, not for research maybe, and for research also. So some incentives can, or do you have some experience?
You're not talking about the research, but
no, just about the people. For example, we think that with data portability clause, it will be possible for some private organizations, as you told, not to own the data, but to process the data. How would you incentivize people? I think we could give some small discounts or some loyalty points, but what is your experience?
Have you ever heard about, I'm not sure about the English expression. It's mother and child notebook, which is basically paper-based notebook so far. That has been quite effective to lower the child mortality rate and so on. And this notebook could be digitized in order to share the data with health practitioners and doctors and so on and so forth. And that would greatly benefit the mothers and of course the children. And in order to digitize this notebook, the local government must disclose the data they are storing to mothers, and that would be a quite clear benefit for the mother. So those kind of things may be happening in the future, quite near future, I hope.
I understand. It's very strong initiative, but this is concrete solution for one concrete question, mother and child. Do you have something more general to advise? Like, I don't know, for millions of people.
So not just to mothers, but also to everybody else. Some local governments.
Sorry, maybe I put my question in a more simple way. I see the problem that some public services providers are too much expensive comparing to market level, because they are not so transparent comparing to normal business. And the persons don't see this difference in costs that they are suffering at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the persons pay for all the services. Maybe some solutions how to incentivize persons to use more cost-effective solutions that are on the market, and we are not aware of all these solutions.
Are you talking about the kind of services which are provided by both the public sectors and the private sector?
Yes, exactly.
Well, I'm not sure. Do you have any concrete?
I will interrupt this discussion here, because this is what we will soon have in groups.
Okay.
Just to move on and not to stay
I see, yeah.
just
I
on
will
this
speak
case.
later.
I will just give a shortly word to
Just a
Valerie,
short question.
and then let's move on.
If I understand well, you consider that this my number identification is something really positive, the same you do, and helpful for the whole MyData approach. And I don't understand why is it that positive and why is it necessary for the MyData approach. I don't see the relation. And when I see what is happening in India nowadays, I think this is really, really threatening. So my instinctive reaction would be not so enthusiastic. So I'd like a little more explanation about the use.
Person identification combined with PDS is the best way to go, I guess, because person identification is necessary for each person to register at different services like banks and taxation and education and so on. So that's a must. But on the other hand, you must prevent the government from collecting and accessing too much data of you. And instead of the government, you yourself must use the data to do that. So that's where PDS comes in. So the combination of person identification and PDS would be the right way. And India is trying to do that.
Okay, so this is a good basis for further discussions, naturally, and this is what we are here for, to find the challenges and see how we can tackle them together, or as a global community. So, thank you, Koichi.
Thank you.